Yeah, if you haven't been around a proper family structure where dad was doing what he was supposed to do, mom was doing, what she was supposed to do, you have to understand that you need to do more listening. Okay? For a lot of people in the black community, it's already a given that we didn't grow up in two-parent households, but apart from that, we weren't even around it. I grew up obviously in a two-parent household, but also in a single-parent household when things fell apart. But with that being said, I was also around other families who were together, right? So it wasn't a big deal to see two-parent households. It was, expected. Growing up, if, like, let's say I was in elementary school and you were a student and you were found out to be, a product of a single-parent home, it was, like, shocking. Literally, it was just like, whoa, you don't live with both your parents? You're going to your dad's house on the weekend? Like, that was so new. That was the type of world I grew up in. And mind you, I grew up in a pretty, somewhat diverse suburb sort of lifestyle where it was a blue-collar sort of suburb. So it was a mix of everything. So when I speak on issues of the family, I'm not doing so because I feel like I know it all. I'm doing so because I'm sharing what I have seen. Oftentimes, we don't understand that age doesn't mean you necessarily get something. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you hadn't grown up in that family sort of structure, you're not going to know. Being older doesn't mean anything. Being educated, having a degree, doesn't mean anything. So when I speak about these issues, I'm not speaking from the perspective of somebody who went to college. No, I'm not. I went to college and all the other good stuff to specialize in education. So if I'm talking about education, of course I'm going to, flex my intellectual muscle, right? Just like if we're talking about law or science and somebody, is in that industry, I would, expect for them to flex their intellectual muscle as well. But I speak from somebody who grew up in the system, and I was lucky enough, and I have to make that clear. It was just a world that I was born into. So I'm not going to sit here and take credit as if I know something that you don't know. All I'm doing is saying I grew up in a special way. Okay, apart from being around the family structure, I was also lucky enough to grow up with older black men that filled that mentorship sort of role. I've seen what a black man is supposed to do, and I've seen what a black man is not supposed to do. I'm lucky. I attribute 50% of what I am to, hard work, but the other 50% just to luck, right? A lot of things fell into place for me, and I was fortunate enough to meet great people, white, black, you name it. So that's where I'm coming to you from, because there's a lot of conversations that are going on that are compelling, but they're not necessarily relative to the family sort of structure. Like when we talk about submission, I sit back and laugh because a lot of y'all act like it's some war. Why do you want to be in a relationship with somebody where you guys are constantly having some debate over who has the power? It's just like, two guys grappling with each other. Do you want your relationship to be like that? For the most part, submission isn't a big thing because there's certain things in the family that the wife will take care of and that, she'll take lead and the man will, kind of play the fallback role and vice versa. And for the most part, it's two people moving in the same direction. So major issues aren't really an issue because both, man and woman know where the family needs to go. So it's not a big thing. And like I said, it's just a balance. You pick your fights and certain things will be more important to you as a man. And of course, the woman will say, okay, well, I'm going to defer to him and vice versa, where you're going to defer to her. Because she may do a better job at it, yada, yada, yada. And at the end of the day, everybody's moving in the same direction. There's only rare occasions where the whole idea of submission comes into play. And that's when a family needs to make a major life, choice. Do we move? Do I quit my job so I can go back to school? Major life-changing issues. And for the most part, if both sides agree it's not an issue. But there will be times where there's a major issue and the wife or the woman feels a certain way and the man feels a certain way. Like the whole idea of, relocating. Okay, I don't want to go. I want to go. Those are the times where submission comes into play, where the woman has to trust that the man is making the right choice in terms of factoring in everybody's happiness. Because at the end of the day, we are supposed to be the rational foundation. Okay, there's a lot of emotions involved. I remember from a personal standpoint, my parents wanted to move, and it would have been a big move. We were relatively young, but they were established in their careers and things were going okay. And we were thinking about moving into a bigger house in a better neighborhood, but it would have shook up everything. My mom wanted to make the move because, she was emotional. Bigger home, better area. But my dad didn't want the move because he wanted the whole stability. Things were stable, things were good. Okay, let's not rock the boat. We have a good thing here. And my mom had to submit to that. Okay, she didn't like it, but she had to trust that my dad was making the better decision. And in my opinion, it worked out. Right? Because, we would have pretty much been moving from a mixed sort of suburb area, blue collar, to a more so uppity white collar where I would have been around upper class white people and Asian people. And I don't think I would be the same person if that's how I grew up in that sort of environment. Right? So it's those sort of, choices or issues that come up where the whole idea of submission comes into play. It's not going to be a day-to-day battle. And at the end of the day, if you choose somebody who thinks like you and who's moving in the same direction, you'll be fine. And I know this why? Because I've seen it. Okay, and now that I even get older, some of the same families that I'm around, I can talk to the father and he'll let me know. Like I'll go to a barbecue, one of my old buddies is having a barbecue, I'm there, the father's talking to us, when we're sitting down having a beer and we're talking about life. Okay, in the same neighborhoods that I grew up in. And like I said, if you didn't grow up in a family, you don't know that. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It's something that you've never seen or been part of. Secondly, and this is more important. I wouldn't say more important, but also equally as important, the whole idea of who's making more. Typically, man marries a younger girl. So I would always say, especially in a lot of minority groups that are doing well, they'll choose the younger wife. Now, he's further along in his career. So he's going to be making more money than the chick who's 25, 26, who's just getting into her career. She's young, she's brand new. So obviously he's making more. But as she gets older and she progresses into her career and, moves up laterally, guess what? She's going to be making similar money. So by the time she's in her 30s, she's probably going to be making just as much as the husband because she's moving along in her career. Okay? So if you are an older woman and you're making a lot of money and you want a man to be making more money than you, you're not thinking properly. You're older. You've been working for a while now. You are going to be making more money. You're going for the same jobs. You're going for the same positions. You have the same level of education. You are going to be making more. So even if he married you younger, where he was making more money and you were making less, by the time you hit 30s, whether you're with him or not, you're going to be making similar money. So if you're a 32-year-old woman who's making great money, great. Great. That's how it should be. The men that you're looking for, more times than not, will be making similar money. Because you've had just enough time to be in your career and do all the things that you need to do. But that's something that you don't see. Right? That's something that we don't see because we didn't grow up in that sort of environment. So we can't understand simple things like that. Yes, a younger woman is going to be making less money than a woman who is older, whether she's with somebody or not. So you can't be surprised if you're in your 30s and above and you're making more money or similar money to the men, to professional men. Because you've been doing your thing for the past 7 years. It's common sense. So if you're dating in your 30s, you can't walk around on some, well, how much he's making? He's not making more, blah, 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 blah. Maybe a 24-year-old or a 25-year-old who's fresh out of college can think that way. But you got all the experience. So those are, things that we don't think about because we didn't grow up in that system. That's why, for me, it's important that people do more listening. Really, it is. Because we can debate and have fun just to debate. Because part of it is fun. My point is this, your point is that. But if you're trying to get somewhere and take something from the conversation, you have to understand how you grew up. And listen. Because age isn't going to put it into your head. TV, magazines, it's not going to do it for you either. Especially when the vast majority of black people talk about how they grew up without a father or in a broken home, this, that, and the third. So y'all take it easy. Tell me how you feel. God bless.